The Aylesbury estate in Walworth, South London, has a remarkable but uneven history. Built between 1963 and 1977, it eventually comprised 2,700 spacious, modern council homes. Today it is being dismantled and replaced and widely seen as having failed. But like all regeneration stories, the Aylesbury's has many sides.
My experience as a resident of the Aylesbury estate has been, I'd say exciting, mainly filled with joy. When I think of my experiences growing up in the Aylesbury, I think of friendship, I think of community, I think of learning, I think of playing football, I think of the youth clubs that were here, I think of summer. So there's a lot of warm, sort of nostalgic, positive things that come when you ask me what my experiences were like in Aylesbury.
I was living in Southern California for 25 years, and I decided that if I was going to be relatively poor, I'd rather be relatively poor in London and retired, because there's so much more you can do in public transport and everything in Los Angeles. So I came back in '92, and I moved into the Aylesbury in '94, and my mum moved into with me in '95. So for once in my life, I did one of the right things at the right time, because she had Parkinson's and she lived with me for the last 6 years of her life. So I had to buy a flat that was going to be big enough for both of us, which is why I bought a 3-bedroom maisonette on the Aylesbury with 2 south-facing balconies. I mean, it was unbelievable and it was huge.
It was beautiful. Everybody, whenever they come, they used to say, how do you get this place? This place is so nice.
Even so, the Aylesbury's grey concrete look was derided, and its design was said to encourage antisocial behaviour. No one denies there were stubborn problems with too many of the dwellings. One tenant discovered these not so long ago, when he moved in during his student days.
Every time, sometimes when I go to, during those times I was still studying, when I go to lectures, when I came back home, my living room is already flooded with water, and I have to call the council. They came to fix it, but they couldn't fix it the first time properly.
Leaks had long affected others too.
I swear I had some pipes that were only being held together by the rust. And I knew my downstairs neighbours. I had 2 downstairs neighbours, so every time I leaked into them I felt terribly guilty and I had to keep fixing it. And then you'd get a plumber and you'd get a plumber and you'd get a plumber 3 times. The council, some of them were the council's responsibility, and they never seemed able to send it anybody who knew what they were doing.
If it wasn't leaks, it was something else.
It's a little bit all right, like this week we still got the same issues about last week. This week we've got no eating for like 3 days, and they're saying they're doing some maintenance stuff, and we've got a baby in the house, all the stuff, and then they brought back the eating after some couple of days, and they didn't bring back our hot water, so we have to keep calling the repair center, and they said, well, there is a pipe burst that they're still working on it.
I had twice I was flooded out, because and then they found they had asbestos in the flat.
And what about the atmosphere on the Aylesbury? What about the bad reputation that it, like so many council estates, attracted? It has been home to thousands of people, and there seems to be a variety of views.
So we had good neighbours, lovely neighbours. You could go anywhere, leave your door open. Some move away and some passed away. And then they start moving in, a lot of people from all over where I don't know. And there's where it started to go down. We used to have milk delivered. They start drinking the milk and peeing in the bottles. Then they start delivering, you had the covers on the landing. They start sleeping in the covers, so they had to nail the covers up. And then in the morning, you find all the druggies thing all on the place. And this is how the place began to go down.
Sheila believes the system for allocating homes was responsible.
So they should have been more careful. But they just moved in and anybody out. And it was so lovely when we moved in there. People used to say, how come you get this is so nice and whatever. I had twice I was flooded out and twice I was broken into. And then the last thing was the mice.
Much of the negative image the Aylesbury got lumbered with was unfair. Certainly it was unfair to most of the people living there.
A lot of it had to do with, again, this perception of crime. Crime on the Aylesbury wasn't any higher than anywhere else. A lot of it had to do with what it looks like.
So in regards to the reputation that Aylesbury had when I was growing up, I was conscious of it, in that I've heard people speak of it. So I would go to places and I'd tell people where I'm from, and they'll be very surprised and almost concerned, like, for my safety. But I could say, honestly speaking, growing up, I didn't feel under any kind of threat growing up in Aylesbury. You would hear of things, but growing up, for me personally, I never saw anything. I was never witness to anything that was, socially disruptive in the way that it was spoken about.
But by the end of the last century, the Aylesbury's long, slow regeneration journey was underway. In 1997, 20 years after its completion, the estate was the location for Tony Blair's first speech as Prime Minister. He said, "I don't want there to be any forgotten people in the Britain that we want to build." The government provided money as part of its New Deal for communities. Residents voted against the estate being transferred to a housing association, so the council looked into a large refurbishment scheme. Sandy was a member of a residents' association.
But they were doing all of that was when they came up with this very large sum of money for each flat that it was going to cost to refurbish the whole thing. And you'd have to move everybody out because you'd have to do the plumbing. You can't do plumbing if people are still living in the buildings. So it was be one of these sort of 20-year rolling programs. And the other thing was, it would absorb all the money, so that Southwark would be spending everything on the Aylesbury. So every other estate in Southwark would not get any money for decent homes, and that's when I thought, well, if we can't afford to refurbish, there's going to have to be regeneration. In that case, let's get the best deal we can.
Over the next 7 years, the council produced a redevelopment strategy. Work began in 2009. But what was the best deal for Aylesbury residents? What would they gain from the regeneration? And what might be lost?
But whilst I was growing up, I did you would see rats, you would see damp, you would see leaks. So those things sort of led you to believe, okay, maybe this area could do with a refurbishment.
For Tyrrell, though, the regeneration came with a heavy early price that wasn't about architecture or plumbing.
I wrote a play, Red Pitch, based on my experiences growing up on Aylesbury Estate. So there was, just across from where we are right now, there was a football pitch, which we used to call Big Pitch. And in addition to it being a space for us to play football, it was also for a safe space where we could sort of just talk freely without sort of being in each other's houses, so our parents, with the conscious of our parents eavesdropping in conversations that we might not want them to hear. We would play other games, not just football. We would sort of discuss dreams and what we want to do in the future. And it came to pass that that football pitch would become a block of flats. So the play really is interrogating the space and what space means to young people, because when that space was taken away from us, there wasn't really anywhere else that we could do those things in that same way.
Regeneration means building new and better homes. It can also mean people moving out of their old ones and into different neighbourhoods.
I didn't know at what cost that would be, so I'm referring to people sort of being moved out and rehoused, and that sense of community slowly disappearing and fading away. I think when I was growing up, there were a lot of young people here at the time, so we shared similar experiences. We were experiencing life at the same time, so we could sort of counsel each other in that kind of way. We also sort of enjoyed each other's company. We were interested in similar things. And when I look at the elder residents of the Aylesbury estate, they were also very friendly, very supportive. There was a real family unit that I felt growing up in Aylesbury.
For leaseholders, people owning Aylesbury homes rather than renting them, there have been particular financial concerns. The compensation offered has not matched the price of buying a new home in the same area.
I bought my flat from people who'd exercised a right to buy, so I bought it on the open market. Now, first of all, I had great difficulty in getting a mortgage because it was concrete slab. And second of all, I bought a 3-bedroom maisonette with 2 south-facing balconies across the road from a 1-bedroom flat for the same price. So from the very beginning, I knew that valuations on the Aylesbury were always going to be lower.
Sandy thinks Southwark Council could have handled things better in the early days.
At the very beginning, the council just thought all they had to do was send out a letter. We're going to buy you out. And that was all they had to do. We kept saying that's not enough. You know, you've got to have lots of different options for leaseholders, and you've got to really talk to every one of them. You've got to sit down with, because everybody's problems and story is different. We had these people in their 80s who'd been persuaded by Mrs. Thatcher to exercise their right to buy, who could barely afford the service charge and certainly could never afford to pay for any major works. They were living on an old age pension, and they were terrified about moving.
Disputes over the issue continue to this day.
That there were 4 or 5 leaseholders on my block, and 3 of them are still there. So, I mean, I've been moved nearly 4 years, and they're all still there. And all I can say is I'm so glad I got it over with, because it's one of those things, it just tears you apart.
The Aylesbury regeneration is still at an early stage. The first new homes were completed in 2011. In 2014, demolition began of old homes, including on the site where Tyrrell's big pitch was. And the following year, the council teamed up with the Notting Hill Housing Association to complete the job. There will be many more homes on the site than before, though fewer will be for social rent than when the estate was built. There will be many homes for market sale, enabling the scheme's finances to stack up. It is scheduled to be finished in 2032. How have residents found the experience so far? Sheila has already moved to a new home off the estate, though very close to it, and a couple of her old neighbours are in the same block.
So I love this flat. This is wonderful. It's everything on one. The only thing is when the lift broke down for about 7 weeks, and I was housebound, I couldn't get anywhere.
And those still in her old Aylesbury building?
Good luck to them, I'm not there anymore. And I'm not there with the mice, the rat, the mice anymore.
Meanwhile, Omar Balaji and his family are still dealing with the same old problems.
This week, we still got the same issues about last week. This week, we've got no eating for like 3 days, and they're saying, they're doing some maintenance stuff, and we've got a baby in the house, all the stuff. And then they brought back the eating after some couple of days, and they didn't bring back our hot water, so we have to keep calling the repair center, and they said, well, there is a pipe burst that they're still working on it. So actually yesterday they brought the hot water, so still those are the issues I'm facing. And sometimes in the lift as well, the lift is not always broke down as well, because I live on the top floor, which is the 6th floor, and then we have 2 lifts. Sometimes it broke down as well, and then sometimes some of these bad guys, they go in there and weigh in there all the stuff, so it's not really convenient for a baby like that. So those are the issues I'm facing.
The estate still has its good sides though.
Life living on the Aylesbury estate it's been all right. It's been quite fun, and we've got lots of activities, especially during the summer, that we all residents usually goes to.
And the regeneration isn't only about buildings. Notting Hill has contributed to helping residents in other areas of their lives. Working with an on-site community team, Omar Balaji has polished his CV and ended up with an important London job.
My role is to make sure the electrical systems is working efficiently and to make the train to run smoothly on the underground.
And Sandy's new flat?
There are things I don't like about it. I actually just wrote 2 pages of what is wrong with the design of this flat, because I thought, well, the Notting Hill is going to be building a lot more flats. We need to make sure they get it right,
But on the upside,
I like it because I know this is a lifetime home. So it's designed with the window that all the doors are wide enough for a wheelchair. The main bathroom is got you can turn a wheelchair in it. I have a walk-in shower, and I have a lift. So in theory, I can be here until I'm 99. I get sun through to the early afternoon, and then I get sun in the late afternoon because it reflects off those windows and comes back in here. So it's kind of nice. It's still just within walking distance of the underground station, though I find I take the bus more. But being able to walk through the park, I walk through the park almost every day, and that's wonderful. and it's still within walking distance of most of the picture houses in South London. So I walked to East Dulwich, and I walked to the Ritzy, and I walked to Clapham Common, so, you know.
Tyrrell is one of many yet to be rehoused. As his play reflects, he's trying to keep an open mind about what's happening to the place he calls home and what the future might hold.
Whilst developing the play, I wanted to be very true to my opinions and also the opinions that I heard growing up. So I think rather than it sort of commenting on regeneration as a wholly negative thing, or gentrification in fact, which is what the regeneration of Aylesbury estate is often referred to as, I wanted to look at the counter argument to that, as I wish to do in all my work. It's difficult to think of the upsides without sort of remembering the sacrifices which sort of took us to where we are. But of course, you get new flats, and that's good in the sense that flats that were on the decline are now sort of been refurbished and replaced. It's good at the moment, a lot of the stuff, the positive things that are to come into Aylesbury haven't come to pass yet, so I know that there's a library that's being built and some more stuff for young people. So over time, progressively, I'm sure I'll be able to see the upsides more and more.